I'm Fritz Kaegi. I'm your Cook County assessor, and I'm here at the assessor's office with Tonika Johnson. Tonika has been someone that we've been interacting with at our office for years. She is an artist, author, public intellectual, and recent recipient of the MacArthur Genius Award, which is a giant honor. And you are an expert on the topic of segregation.
Yes.
And segregation is something that runs deep in Chicago, in the suburbs. I feel like it's everywhere, and how our school districts are shaped, our neighborhoods, and yet it's also the thing that no one talks about or kind of glides over. Tell us about your work. You know, I think of the Folded Map Project. That's one of the first things that we heard about, but tell us more about your work, Tonika. Tell us about you.
So a lot of my projects deal with segregation for the exact reason that you said, because it's something that I believe in Chicago we've normalized, because it's been our city's history, and we've normalized it to the point that we don't talk about it. And when we do talk about it, it's only in regards to laws, policy, voting, when really it's a personal issue as well. So a lot of my work, all of my projects, especially Folded Map, is really about uplifting the fact that segregation was started by individuals who held certain beliefs, and it can be disrupted and changed by people who hold different beliefs. And so my projects help people disrupt segregation by personalizing it. And one way to personalize it is by getting to know people that segregation has kept you away from, and finding out commonalities, understanding that you all live in one city and we have all been impacted by it. So a lot of my projects deal with that.
Well, and I've sort of realized how I grew up in Chicago. I grew up on the South Side in Hyde Park, which is part of this history. It is a great neighborhood with a really interesting history, part of the larger history of Chicago, but also America on things like segregation. And I only realized, you know, as I was growing up, that sometimes it was strange. People would say, oh, you know, you can't go here, or you shouldn't go there, or someone had to move. And people would sort of beat around the bush, and I didn't understand really what they were talking about. And you sort of have to look back and think, oh, there's a deep history here, and we need to talk about it and confront it, right?
Yes. People get the advice to don't go to the South Side of Chicago and the West Side of Chicago all of the time. I give presentations all over the city, even outside of the country, and people hear that advice. And it's really problematic. And a lot of people think it's, because of safety, but they don't understand the history behind it, that it's really because of race. And so when I give presentations and I tell people, well, the sides of the city that you're told to not go to, those are the exact sides of the city that has the predominantly Black population. And a lot of people are surprised. They were like, oh, I didn't know that. Or they thought that it was just because it's crime ridden and they don't understand the geography of the city. And oftentimes I have to tell them, well, the South Side is half of the city. So when you're told to not go to the South Side, which comprises of many different neighborhoods, you're actually being told to not go to half the city. And people are just surprised and really don't know geography, which is why a lot of my projects include geography.
Yeah, there's 1 million people who every day, living and breathing, Americans or neighbors, are going about their business, getting food, have beautiful homes, taking care of their yards, taking care of their block, having parties. All the neighborhoods are very different.
They are.
And people just sometimes don't see the difference, right?
Yeah, because they get told, they get instructed to not do so. And a lot of my projects aim to help people see the economic impact of that advice, because they think, oh, well, you know, how harmful could it be to just get told to not go to the South Side or the West Side? But when you're in a room of 300 and 600 people and they all raise their hand, being told to not go to the South Side of Chicago, then it starts to make sense. Oh, this could affect the economics of a neighborhood. And I basically tell people, now just imagine if you all were business owners.
Yeah.
Like, this is the continuation of redlining. being given that advice. And so these neighborhoods are being impacted by the fact that no one wants to invest or visit, or, the idea of starting a business in that neighborhood. And if you do start a business in those neighborhoods, then it's going to be harder to have customers because they're getting told that advice. And so when people see everyone raise their hand when they get asked that question, then it becomes clear how it's a continuation of redlining.
Absolutely. And I want to get to your book, but first of all, I want to tell you a little story from my life that illustrates what you just talked about.
I love this.
So I mentioned I grew up in Hyde Park. I went to Kenwood Academy, and I had a wonderful experience there. Sure. Our high school was mostly Black.
Yeah.
We had the only debate team that would travel around the Chicago area, including the suburbs, which were mostly white. And we were having some success. And there was always debate tournaments at different high schools around in the suburbs. And so we said, hey, we want to have a debate tournament at Kenwood and invite all these high schools to come here to meet with us, and then we can become part of this network. And then there was silence for a while, and then we started to hear, hey, we don't think that's a good idea. And then we started to ask, why? Is it because we're a new team on the debate circuit? Exactly. And they're like, no, you guys are doing great. It's just we think it's too dangerous to come to your neighborhood. And these were folks from the far out western suburbs, and that.
How did that make you feel?
That was shocking. It was shocking to all of us because here we were, going head to head against these other teams, debating them one-on-one on objective criteria. We were with them. They respected what we were doing, and yet they wouldn't come to the place that we live in to debate and even see for themselves. And so that was just a little thing from my life.
That's the kind of stories that are in the book, and it's really important that we share that because it's unfair and it's uninformed, and people hide behind the fact that when you're talking about places, you're really talking about people.
Yeah.
And so that's why sharing your story and others sharing their stories is really important because we have to talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what you do in your book.
That's exactly what I do.
So let's talk about your book, Don't Go.
Yes.
And where does the title come from and what's it about?
So I'm horrible with coming up with titles for my project. That's why Folded Map is just Folded Map, because I kept saying it over and over while I was explaining it. And the same with this book. When I was thinking about how do I get people interested in this topic, as well as letting them know a little bit about what we're gonna talk about. And it just made sense to say, don't go, because it's familiar. People, even without knowing what the book is about, they already start to think and wonder, oh, don't go. I've been told that, especially when they know it's about Chicago. So people make a lot of assumptions that are accurate when it comes to what this book is about.
I love how your book has stories of real people and their experiences with this, because I think that's something that everyone can relate to, regardless of age, when they're reading your book. One of the things that we see at our office is that there's an affordability crisis in Chicago, in the suburbs, in America.
Yes.
And younger people who want to become homeowners are being priced out of huge swaths of the city.
Oh,
and what we see is that younger families who want to have a home are a little bit more open-minded about where they might want to live and to sort of check some of these assumptions or stories that might have been told to them. And we think it's starting to affect neighborhoods, where people live, who's going there, how much people pay for homes. We see this happening all over because of a lot of people who are working, who are families who work, who want to have a home. They can't buy a neighborhood in maybe half of the city. And so they're looking at other parts of the city and the suburbs that their parents might not have looked at.
No, and
that maybe gives an opportunity to check some of our assumptions.
It is an opportunity, and it's a great opportunity to show how we're all impacted, because if North Side neighborhoods are over-resourced, then it it's not only segregation by race, but also class. And a young family probably wouldn't be able to afford. So they're going to have to be open-minded to other neighborhoods that are more affordable. And so that's why this conversation has to continue to be had, because then we're going to have to deal with the reality of possibly gentrification. But there is an opportunity that we should capitalize on, which is the open-mindedness of the young generation to consider other neighborhoods and trying to research a little bit more and not just wanting to subscribe to what they hear on the news. And then also identifying other values of a neighborhood beyond if the schools are great or anything else, but actually considering the community aspect. And a lot of my projects really bring that up, how people are saying, well, you know, if I have to be a part of a neighborhood to help improve the resources that the schools get, I will be willing to do so because I will be in community with others who want to work towards the same thing. So it really is a strong sense of community in neighborhoods that have been historically disinvested in. And a lot of people are, you know, becoming aware of that and value that when they're considering where they want to live. So it is an opportunity that we should capitalize on. And these conversations are really helpful.
Totally. And you've been on your own homeowner's journey, as I understand.
I was one of those young people that's like, I can't afford to live in any of the other neighborhoods that I thought were cool. So I'm going to go back home to Englewood.
Yeah. And so tell us about that. How did you think about which neighborhood you want to pick in? Tell us about the homes you saw in Englewood.
Well, it's very similar to what a lot of people are experiencing. I grew up enjoying a lot of neighborhoods in Chicago. Even though I grew up in Englewood, I never felt like, oh, I have to stay in Englewood. I've enjoyed Edgewater, Lincoln Park, all of the other neighborhoods. And so when I started to look for a home, I realized, oh, I can't afford any of that, which, you know, was disheartening because I really had to think about why I enjoyed those neighborhoods and then also accept the reality of why my home neighborhood didn't have that. And so when I thought about where I could afford, obviously the neighborhood that I grew up in was an option because I knew that neighborhood. It's enjoyable to be able to go to the store, walk down the street and run into people that I grew up with. So if I was going to have to live in a neighborhood that did not have all of the amenities that other neighborhoods that I was considering had, then I was definitely going to lean on the fact that I just want to feel like I'm at home. So I decided to purchase in my home neighborhood. And when I was looking at a lot of the properties, that also revealed to me the situation that was going on in my home neighborhood, which is the minimal housing stock, how it's a lot of beautiful buildings with great bones and structures, but a lot of them haven't gotten the investment to become move-in ready. And so it wasn't as many options, but the options that exist were amazing. The home that I end up choosing is on a block filled with many homeowners who have a lot of bungalows on the block. And they've been there for a long time. And so I just embedded myself right into an existing community base, and it was really wonderful. But it was a search. It was a search.
And do you have a favorite place to get food in Englewood?
Oh my goodness. I love going to Kusania Cafe, but a lot of the places that I frequent are across the street from Englewood on 75th Street, but still in my ward,
it's
in the 6th Ward.
Distinguish people who have neighborhoods in Chicago. We need to distinguish and be
neighborhoods are very different from wards. And so, 75th Street has a lot of great food, a lot of great restaurants. And so one of the ones that I love to go to is Soul Vegetarian. And then I also love Brown Sugar Bakery. And then also, of course, during family celebrations, I might have to pick up some ribs from Limbs for family members.
Nice. So. All right. That is a classic Chicago
and that's all on 75th
right
Street.
there.
So really.
Great history. And let's go deeper on when you became a homeowner, what some of the things that you wanted to take care of. Because we could do something here at the assessor's office, but you weren't sure how to deal with it, it sounded like.
So when I became a homeowner, I was really excited, but given the work that I do, sometimes a lot of people feel that I'm an expert in all of these areas. And I'm like, no, not really. I'm learning a lot about property taxes, just like everybody else. And my home ownership journey was a part of me getting a deeper understanding about property taxes. And so, I realized that was something that I had to check on, every year. That's something that I did not know before I was a homeowner. Like, oh, you should be looking at your property taxes every year just to make sure that, they have or have not increased, or to understand why. And so recently I was just doing that annual check, because hearing about property taxes increasing, I wondered, okay, well, am I going to be affected by that? And then I discovered that I did not have any exemptions. And this is something that when I was entering my home ownership journey, no one told me that when you become a homeowner, you should check for your exemptions outside of checking about your property taxes every year. So, thanks to the news coverage and you all being so prevalent on social media, it just reminded me that, oh, I should check. And luckily I did, because I discovered that I did not have any exemptions. And so this has been a part of my home ownership journey, just learning about everything that I have to learn about and take into consideration. And this is the 5th year of my home ownership journey. So
okay, so we're going to go back and get you signed up for the exemptions that you should have had.
That I didn't know that I,
that you're qualified for.
Exactly.
So, and you're not alone. What we find is that about 1 out of every 3 homeowners hasn't signed up for their homeowner's exemption yet, even though it's worth between $800 to over $1,000 off of your tax bill every year. And so that's a big chunk. That's the amount by which property taxes rose in Englewood this year for a typical homeowner.
Yes.
So that's
I can
a very
attest to
serious.
that.
Yeah. All right. Well, there we go. We'll talk about that too. And then if you haven't signed up for your homeowner's exemption, the good news is you can go back in time for 3 years that you didn't have it and get credited as if you did with refund checks that are processed at our office and then paid out by the treasurer. And then so not only for that $800 to $1,000, but also for the previous 3 years, you can be refunded and given a refund check for the amount that you overpaid if you were paying property taxes before.
That's important to know. And so I'm wondering, everyone hears on the news about the property tax increases, and a lot of people don't understand it. So what happened? What is going on right now?
So let's talk about it. We reassessed Chicago in 2024, and based on, we always take a snapshot of what houses and other properties are selling for. And residential value had risen in a lot of neighborhoods, including Englewood, where the typical price went from around $60,000 to a little bit over $100,000, which is good. That's helping people build home equity. But what would have happened? People's bills in Englewood should have been about flat this year, and here's why. Commercial properties went up even more in value by our lights. And if our assessments had not been changed on appeal by the Board of Review, the tax bills in about 2/3 of Chicago's Black neighborhoods, 2/3 of its Latino neighborhoods, bills would have been flat or down.
Okay.
Now, in some neighborhoods, they were still down, like Avalon Park and in Chatham. But in a lot of neighborhoods, people were having to pay more because another body of government, the Cook County Board of Review, cut commercial assessments downtown so much. They passed $500 million of tax burden on because they cut the values of commercial buildings downtown. And that led to $700 per homeowner increase in people's bills. That was almost all of the increase that happened in Englewood. More than all of the increase that happened in West Englewood. And so this really has us disturbed because we think people are paying too much of the burden. And it causes a lot of distress, right? You're just trying to live your daily life, go about your business being a homeowner. You want to pay your fair share, but having unexpected increases can really cause a lot of distress for people, and it can cause people to lose their homes. So we're really concerned about it. So what we're doing is, first of all, every day we're trying to make sure that commercial properties are valued at their fair levels so that homeowners aren't making up the difference for cuts they don't deserve. And so we work every single day on that. We're working on a plan with other county leaders to come up with changes to commercial assessment so that those same kinds of reductions won't happen and push the burden onto folks in Englewood. And then we also have a plan in Springfield that we've been trying to advance, and we work with leading mayors in the western and south suburbs who have some of the highest tax rates to get a property tax relief plan put in place in our state. We need that, because if someone in West Garfield Park is having their bill go up by more than $1,000, that's just impossible for some families. And a property tax relief plan, which 29 other states have programs like this, it would cover up to half of the increase in their bill for several years. And so that's what we're pushing for. And of course, we want to make sure everyone's getting their exemptions. We had a town hall and workshop in Kennedy King College at 63rd and Halsted in Englewood back in December. Hundreds of people came, and we were able to help them. More than 40% of the people there didn't have their exemptions. And so we were able to help them to get these exemptions, which are worth about $800 for their home. And if they're a senior, it's another $600 for your senior exemption, and you might even qualify for the freeze. That put people in a lot better place. But a lot of people who work aren't going to be able to benefit from the senior homeowners exemption or the freeze. And so we need to make sure that we're looking out for them. Property tax relief is an important part of that.
So the 3 exemptions that I heard, the homeowners,
homeowners,
the senior, and then the
senior freeze.
Okay, so
those are the 3 biggest ones. The homeowner and the senior exemption, they're for everyone, regardless of your income, if it's your main residence.
And this is great information, because until the change can happen, this is what people can do. That's right. To protect them until then.
To advocate for themselves, absolutely. And they can also look out for their friends and neighbors. Englewood's got wonderful block clubs. And we work with organizations like My Block, My Hood, My City to get information to all the block clubs to say, hey, everyone on your block can probably be saving more than $10,000 a year keeping money on this block just by making sure that everyone on the block is getting exemptions. So that's one of the things that we've been trying to do.
Well, thank you for that, because I definitely did not know how to sort and sift through all of the information on the news about property tax increase, and I'm probably going to have to listen to you explain this again, but that's all right. Just having you explain is really helpful, because a lot of people don't know why the increase occurred, and then there's a whole bunch of incorrect information going on about why that is. So to hear it from you is really helpful.
Well, it's important. Our job is, we have many different roles that we have to play here, is to explain shifts in our tax base if they're happening. Whether we created those shifts or not, it's important for people to know what's going on. So that's why we talk about that. The treasurer, she does good research on this too, Maria Pappas, and she wrote a study showing that $500 million of burden had been transferred onto our homeowners, and that works out to about $700 per homeowner. That's very serious. So
it is.
That's why we try to shine a light on that. But then we also want to work in workshops like we had at Kennedy King that our outreach team does all over Cook County to make sure everyone's getting those exemptions, work with partners like some of the groups that we mentioned, and then work with people who are influential out there in the world to get the word out. Because we know not everyone is a reader. Not everyone is going to our website. A lot of people are using video, so we hope people see video here. And we want to make sure we're reaching people wherever they are.
No, thank you for that. That's really important.
All right. Well, hey, Tonika, thanks. Anything else you wanted to add for everyone out there?
No, I think that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for everyone being here, and we'll see you next time.